Hi folks, just a bit of an update on where I'm at with the CBR. I think the last video that I put up, I'd just taken it out for a ride and it was kind of going, but it's not going very well. So what I've done is now that I've got the MOT on it, I've been kind of troubleshooting the sort of running problem a bit. What I figured out, basically looked at a lot of stuff on the internet, and there are all sorts of things that can cause running problems, but most of the most common kind of problem that people were talking about was basically fueling issues. That it's not getting, if it goes up to a certain RPM and then stops, which is what was happening. So like if it goes up to 4,000 or 5,000 RPM whatever, and then it doesn't go any further than that, like it's got a rev limiter, usually that means that it's not getting enough petrol and it's running too lean. So I kind of thought about it, and I'd already eliminated the fuel pump a while ago in case that was a problem, and I was just using a gravity fed system. So I was wondering if there might be anything else that might be restricting the fuel flow. So what I did was I took the fuel filter out, I removed it altogether, and I removed the little petcock sort of fuel tap thing that I'd installed in there. Removed both of them, and just basically what I did was I just ran like an 8mm fuel hose directly from the bottom of the petrol tank directly onto the carburetors. Literally nothing between the tank and the carbs, just a pipe straight from the bottom of the tank straight into the carburetors. And then what I did was that was yesterday that I did that, and I took it out for a run, and it was definitely better, but the problem still kind of existed. It was better in the sense that it kind of pulled better. The engine was a bit smoother and it felt kind of stronger. There was more kind of power, sort of low down in the mid range. So I kind of thought that's kind of partly solved the problem, but it hasn't completely solved it, because it still wasn't revving beyond 4,000 or 5,000 RPM. So what I decided to do was go back to using the Airbox, because I thought maybe the combination of having a straight pipe from the tank to the carbs and an Airbox might make it run better, because then it's getting like proper fuel flow and proper airflow. So what I did this morning was I took off those mesh filters that I made the other day, and I fitted the Airbox back on with the air filter and tightened it all up so it's all sealed really well. And then what I did was put the tank back on. This time I put in a fuel filter, but I put in a different fuel filter. Instead of the little one that I was using, I've used like the original CBR900 fuel filter, which is like a bigger bore. Internally it's a bigger bore, it's about 8mm. The ones that I'd used before were kind of like a smaller bore, like about I don't know, 4mm or 6mm. Excuse me. So the way it's set up now, it's got original, well, I say original, it's got a CBR900 Airbox, a CBR900 air filter, an 8mm pipe going from the bottom of the tank into a CBR900 fuel filter, and another bit of 8mm pipe going from the fuel filter to the carbs. So once I got it together, I started it and I revved it up a bit, and it actually revved higher than it's ever revved before. Now obviously I don't have a rev counter on it at the moment, okay, so I can't really say exactly what revs it's going up to, but it was high revs. It was like, you know, like sort of, you know, like high revs, like I don't know, 9,000-10,000 RPM, something like that. So what I did then was I took it out for a run on the road, and it's just it's so much better. I mean, it just pulls a lot harder, it's smoother, and the engine's stronger, and it did rev out, rev to much higher kind of revs when I was out on the road than it has previously. So much so that I actually managed to overtake a van and overtake a car. Now after I'd overtaken the car, then it kind of sputtered a bit. So I think there's something's possibly still not quite right. Maybe the carbs are a bit dirty, or maybe they need balanced or something like that. But basically I'm now getting to a point where it's kind of running well enough that I can actually, you know, ride it like a proper bike and you know, use it to kind of get from A to B and what have you. So that's kind of the good news. At this stage it still needs a few things. I mentioned in my last video, I think, that the front mudguard catches on the bottom of the radiator when you go over speed bumps, and that kind of locks the steering up. So like if you hit a speed bump a little bit too fast, it kind of, the front mudguard pops onto the bottom of the, there's like a kind of like a ledge along the bottom of the radiator, and the mudguard kind of comes up and clicks onto it, and then you can't really turn the, well, you can turn the bars, but the steering's like really stiff, which is not catastrophic. When the last time it happened, I just pulled over to the side of the road, and actually as soon as I pulled over to the side of the road, the mudguard just popped off it anyway. But obviously it's not good, you don't really want that happening. So what I'm going to do when I get a chance, when I get time, I'm going to remove the mudguard, and I'm just going to get a hacksaw, and I'm just going to hacksaw the back end of the mudguard off altogether, and then that'll fix that problem. I'm trying to think, there's other bits and pieces I need to do as well. There's a rattle from the clutch. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. The clutch rattles. I know it's the clutch because when you pull in, say for example if I'm waiting at a set of traffic lights and I put it in neutral or whatever and let the clutch out, there'll be a rattle, and if I pull the clutch in, as soon as I pull the clutch in, the rattle stops. Excuse me. So I need to sort the mudguard, I need to sort the clutch, probably still need to get the carbs set up just to get the fueling kind of spot on, you know, because although it's running pretty decent now, it's still not absolutely spot on. Like I say, there are still kind of coughs and sputters and what have you. What I'm going to do tonight though is I think I'm going to take it out this evening when the roads are a bit quieter, and take it for a proper blast and get a feel for, you know, how well it's running and how consistently it runs, whether it'll kind of like, you know, run for sort of 10-20 miles without any problems or whatever, and that'll give me a better idea as to kind of the state of play, you know. So that's kind of it for the moment, really. I basically got a working bike with an MOT, so I've pretty much achieved it. It's just kind of stupid bits and pieces I need to do now, which is pretty cool. But at some point I'll try and do another video of it, like actually revving it up. I might do that later on today or sometime later this week, we'll see, but that's grand. Well, thanks for watching anyway.